Mathematics Level 4, Topic 5, Financial Mathematics. Topic 5, Financial Mathematics, Module 2, Tax and Depreciation. Module 2, Session 1. Session 1 will cover Learning Outcome 5.1.2, Understand and Interpret Tax Tables. Learning Outcome 5.1.2, Understand and Interpret Tax Tables. Let's get started on tax. To begin this module, please get into groups. First, discuss your approach to teaching tax. What problem areas do you encounter? Where do your students struggle? Share ways you've discovered to bring this section alive for students. Tax. This is a particularly useful section of the curriculum because everyone who works needs to submit tax returns and pay tax. Tax returns. This is a completely new topic in Level 4 and poses a lot of problems for students. In particular, in assignments, tests and exams, students struggle to interpret the question and extract the necessary information from what is given. Examples with medical aids and dependents prove particularly troublesome. Teaching tip. Before we move into the procedure for completing a tax return, we will go through all the important terminology. Students will need to understand all these terms thoroughly in order to answer tax return problems. This will help them to extract key terms from the question. We are going to do a quick revision activity on tax terminology. You could play a similar game with students in class. After we read out the definition, call the term out loud. Then we'll reveal the answer. A fee determined by the South African Revenue Services, SARS, that individuals, companies and other business entities must pay on their income, certain products, as well as on services and other activities. Tax. A form you or an accountant complete on your behalf to declare your personal annual income to SARS. Tax return. The tax year for which tax is calculated, starting on 1 March and ending on the last day of February the following year. Year of assessment. The amounts of personal income from which you have to start paying personal income tax and submit a tax return based on 3 broad age groups. Tax threshold. Tables issued by SARS that stipulate the rate at which tax on personal income should be calculated according to a range of different income brackets. Tax tables. The percentage at which your tax payable is calculated, determined from the tax tables according to the income bracket into which your taxable income falls. Tax rate. All the income you received during the year of assessment. Gross income. Items that you may deduct from your gross income, such as contributions to the Unemployment Insurance Fund, UIF, contributions to a pension fund and medical aid contributions, which only applies to persons 65 or older. Deductions. Your gross income minus the deductions allowed. Taxable income. The amount of tax based on the tax rate for your income bracket calculated on your taxable income. Tax payable. A refund deducted from your tax payable amount that you qualify for based on the same broad age groups that applies to the tax thresholds. Tax rebate. A credit deducted from your tax payable amount for a medical scheme contribution only if you are younger than 65. Tax credit. The final amount of tax you must pay after the relevant deductions, rebates, and credits. Tax due. With a good understanding of all the terminology, students should be well equipped to tackle a tax return problem. Let's take a look at the steps students need to take to complete a tax return. Step 1. Determine your gross income. Step 2. Calculate the deductions you are allowed. Step 3. Calculate your taxable income as follows. Taxable income equals gross income minus total deductions. Step 4. Calculate your tax payable at the relevant tax rate that applies to the income bracket into which your taxable income falls according to the tax table for the year of assessment. Step 5. Calculate the tax rebates for which you qualify based on your age group. This includes any medical aid tax credits. Step 6. Calculate your tax due as follows. Tax due equals tax payable minus tax rebates. If students follow this procedure very carefully, they will do well in this section. We asked the lecturer for some tips on tax returns.
I always tell them that we're looking forward for our retirements because when it comes to tax, we as old toppies, we benefit. Why I mention that? Because age plays a very important role. There's a different criteria that is followed for a youngster, and then even a 65 one, and even they go as far as a 75. And those different age groups, you can clearly see the differences on that tax diagram that they give you. And also, but we don't encourage them. But because we're dealing with youngsters, we tell them, don't increase the generation. But that also plays a role, the number of dependents. So they need to keep those two things in mind and read about it. The age plays a role, and the number of dependents plays a role, and then other factors like pension. But it depends on the nature of the problem, but always consider those two things. Number of dependents, age, and also look at the prescriptions there, because you get a certain amount that you qualify to claim or get for number of dependents, and also you fall into a certain category based on that table on your age. So it's important to take those two in consideration, and then it's also a straightforward recipe because you identify, you go to the table, and you follow the steps.
Teaching tip on tax tables. When setting assignments and exams, all tax return questions need to be accompanied by a sample tax table detailing the income tax rates and tax rebates and thresholds, as well as a table on medical tax credits. Tax tables can be found on the SARS website, www.sars.gov.za. Let's take a look at how to find tax tables on the SARS website. We want to look up the latest tax rate tables from the South Africa Revenue Service online. We navigate to www.sars.gov.za. Here we have the SARS website. Let's type tax rates into the search box. Ah, the tax rates page is the first one in our search results. Let's click on that. Here are some dates on the past few tax years. We are looking for income tax. There it is. Let's click on that. Here we have a list of the different income tax rate sections. We want to look at rates of tax for individuals and also at the medical tax credit rates. Let's start with the rates of tax for individuals. I'm clicking on that. And here we have our tax tables. You can see the first one is for the 2019 tax year, and if we scroll down, we can see the tables for earlier years. 2018 tax year, 2017 tax year, 2016 tax year, 2015 tax year, 2014 tax year. And then here, below those tables, we have our table of tax rebates and our table for tax thresholds. All of these are important when setting tax questions for students. Now, let's go back to the previous screen and also take a look at the medical tax credit rates. Students will also need to work with these when doing tax return questions. I'm clicking on medical tax credit rates. And here, we can see the table of medical tax credits which are applicable for taxpayers with medical aid. Let's move straight into an activity. In groups, work through this tax return problem that includes medical aid and dependents. Let's take a look at a lecturer working through the solution.
Let us look at the following problem. Neo is a 40-year-old teacher at a private school where he earns 18,000 Rand per month. The school deducts 2,277 Rand per month for PAYE. His pension fund contribution is 1,800 Rand monthly, and he pays 1,900 Rand per month towards medical aid contributions. His salary is structured such that he cannot claim his medical aid contributions from tax because he is under the age of 65 years. He has 2 dependents. He also teaches evening classes at a college where he earns 6,000 Rand per month. The college deducts 25% tax from his salary. Use the tax tables for individuals for the 2017-2018 tax year to prepare his tax return, determine his tax due for the year, and calculate how much he would have to pay to SARS or will receive from SARS. Before we begin, let's summarize the problem, and this will in turn make our analysis of the problem easier. Now, Neo is a 40-year-old teacher. That's our first point. And he works at a private school where he earns 18,000 per month. The school deducts 2,277 Rand per month for PAYE. His pension fund contribution is 1,800 Rand per month. And he pays 1,900 Rand per month towards his medical aid contribution. He also has 2 dependents. Neo teaches evening classes at a college where he earns 6,000 Rand per month. And the college deducts 25% tax from his salary. And this forms part of his second salary. Now, Neo can claim his pension fund contributions as a deduction, but because he is under 65, he cannot claim his medical aid contributions as a deduction. Instead, he qualifies for a tax credit in terms of the medical aid scheme contribution. In terms of his age, he also qualifies for the primary rebate only. To complete the tax return, we follow a series of steps. Step 1 is to determine Neo's gross income. Neo gets a full-time salary of 18,000 Rand per month. In order to find the full-time salary for a period of a year, we multiply the salary by 12 months. He also gets a part-time salary of 6,000 Rand, and we multiply the salary by 12 in order to find out what his part-time salary is for the entire year, and we get an answer of 72,000. We then calculate his gross income by adding his full-time salary and his part-time salary. And that gives us a total of 188,000. The second step is to calculate the deductions. In the problem, we were told that Neo's pension fund contributions are 1,800 Rand per month. Therefore, in order to find out what his pension fund contributions are for the year, we'll multiply that by 12. Therefore, his pension fund contributions for the year is 21,600 Rand. Step 3 is to calculate his taxable income. And taxable income is calculated by taking the gross income minus the total deductions. we simply get the results from the previous steps. And on simplifying, we find that his taxable income is 266,400 Rand. Now just remember that because he's under the age of 65, he cannot claim medical aid contributions as a deduction, and therefore it wasn't included as a contribution in the second step. Step 4 requires us to calculate the taxable income. In order to calculate the taxable income, we need to look at the tax tables in order to see in which bracket NEO falls within. Remember that NEO's taxable income was calculated to be 266,400 Rand. According to the tax table on the right, we see that NEO's taxable income falls in the second bracket. And therefore, the following tax rate is applicable to NEO. We see that he will have to pay 34,178 Rand. And then he will have to pay 26% of taxable income above 189,880 Rand. So we take his taxable income and we minus this amount. And on simplifying, we see that NEO will have to pay 26% of 76,520. And the final amount is 54,073 Rand 20 cents. Therefore, the tax payable for NEO is 54,073 Rand and 20 cents. Step 5 requires us to calculate the rebates. NEO qualifies for a primary rebate, and this is based on his age group. NEO is under the age of 65. We then consider his medical tax credit. NEO is the main member. He has 2 dependents, the first dependent and an additional dependent. These values are per month. Therefore, in order to find the medical tax credit for the year, we multiply the result by 12. We simply plug in the values given in the table into the equation. And this gives us a final answer of 9,720 Rand. The total tax rebate is the primary rebate plus the medical tax credit. And this gives us a final answer of 23,355 Rand. The last step involves calculating the tax that is due or the tax that is payable. Remember that the tax payable for NEO was calculated to be 54,073 Rand 20 cents. And the tax rebate, which was calculated in step 5 as 23,355 Rand. And on simplifying the equation, we find that the tax due is 30,718 Rand 20 cents. School deducts 227 Rand payee monthly, as indicated. Once again, in order to find how much the school deducts per year, we multiply the per month value by 12. And the college deducts 25% of his salary. We then calculate the total tax that is deducted by simply adding the two results. And we get a final answer of 45,324. Now, the tax deducted from NEO is 45,324 Rand, while the tax due is 30,718 Rand 20 cents. Therefore, more tax has been deducted than his tax due, and he would receive money from SARS. In order to calculate how much he would receive, we simply take the tax deducted minus the tax due. And we get a final answer of 14,605 Rand and 80 cents. Therefore, he would receive 14,605 Rand and 80 cents from SARS.